This is the Global Economic Commodities Scrap Metal and Recycling Report by our BENLEE roll-off trailer and lugger truck, July 27th, 2020. COVID-19 update. Forecasted U.S. deaths will lower to 219,864 deaths through November 1st, with 146,935 now dead in just 19 weeks, more than the entire population of Savannah, Georgia. As for more bad news, deaths per day are at record levels in some states, and there have been over 1,000 deaths per day in the U.S. for the past 5 days. As for good news, the U.S. agreed to pay Pfizer $1.95 billion for at least 100 million doses of a vaccine that is in testing, and the U.S. is paying Moderna $1 billion for vaccine development. U.S. weekly steel production rose to 1.306 million tons on the slow U.S. manufacturing recovery. Oil price rose to $41.29 a barrel on the global economy coming back and on major global production cuts that remain in place. The U.S. oil rig count rose slightly to 181, but down a huge 88.8% from the 2014 high on low prices and the U.S. commitment to OPEC to cut U.S. production. U.S. weekly oil production rose to 11.1 million barrels per day, remaining near the multi-year low on weak demand and the same U.S. commitment to cut production. Scrap steel number one heavy melt export buying price Philly was steady at $190 gross ton on moderate supply and demand. Scrap steel number one heavy melt composite was steady at $193.33 per gross ton with slight downward pressure for August on moderate supply and weak demand. Hot rolled coil steel fell to $22.02 per hundredweight on good supply and weak demand as the U.S. manufacturing restart is struggling. Copper fell to $2.89 a pound, still near the 15-month high, as China's unwrought copper imports rose 101.4% versus last year on increased manufacturing activity. Aluminum rose to 75.2 a pound, a multi-month high, leaving out the spike on slow global growth. Gold price hit an all-time record of $1,944.50 this morning on concerns about COVID growth and U.S.-China tensions. July's Eurozone, an economy about the size of the U.S., had its manufacturing index rise to 51.1, with over 50 being expansion. It peaked in late 2017 and crashed in April. July had the first factory growth since January 2019. The U.S. dollar index versus global currencies fell to 93.9, the lowest since September 2018, on concerns about the speed of the U.S. recovery and as COVID death rate increases in the U.S. U.S. weekly initial unemployment claims rose to 1.416 million as states were shutting down again. Note, until February, there were about 200,000 a week. July's U.S. Services Index rose to 49.6. Over 50 is expansion. Service growth peaked in mid-2018 and crashed again in April. Services remain contracting, but at a slower rate. July's U.S. Manufacturing Index rose to 51.3. Again, over 50 is expansion. As with services, manufacturing peaked in mid-2018 and crashed in April. July is the first expansion since February. June's U.S. new home sales rose a great 13.8% to an annualized rate of 776,000, the highest since July 2007, but it's only at the level of the 1970s. Also, the huge drop in March and April, combined with record low interest rates, surely helped. Wall Street's Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 202 points to 26,470 on worse unemployment data than expected and on the record COVID deaths in multiple states. As always, feel free to call or email me with any questions. We hope all have a safe and profitable week.